They're
It says
preparing for us.
preparing.
I think we're going to be there. All right, let's look here. I believe that we could be. All right, let me look. Oh my gosh, I don't trust all of this, but let's make for sure that we are here
Oh,
on
I see.
time. It is going to be amazing. Here we go.
I,
Let's.
I see Facebook up in the right-hand corner telling
Is
me
it?
it's
Oh, there we
broadcasting.
are. We're here. Oh my gosh, Jenny, it worked first time.
Oh my gosh, I love that you have pom-poms. That is the
I have
best.
them in every color. I have them in red and pink and gold, and I have them all, whatever I need. So there we go. So,
Oh, Diana, you're so fantastic.
well, for somebody who hated cheerleaders growing up, I kept stats for the football team. It's so funny. Like
Oh my
whatever it is that
gosh.
you say you would never do, then you
Completely.
do that. Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, y'all, for my Sparkle sisters, thank you so much for joining. I know you're going to be sharing this. We are on with a celebrity. I just mentioned that, of course, her book has only been out. I was on the pre-order and is already a USA Today bestsellers list. We're going
Yes.
times. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to kind of set the stage before we jump in. And of course, this is the book that we're talking about, Cultures Matter. And then in the reminders, there's a place where you can order this as well. So, but Jenny and I knew each other. We met when we both went to Crosspoint many years ago. And Crosspoint was the first church that I ever served at. I'd been in church my whole life, but there was just something about what was going on there. And then they started talking about these community groups, and I'm like, nah, I got all enough community, can't take any more community. And so I live in Dixon, and the Nashville campus is about an hour, about 45 minutes to an hour away. And Jenny says, well, I'm going to do a group of just women. And it was, help me, Jenny, with this. It was me and you and Ashley Warren, and then
Yeah. Annie Downs.
before when she was writing her first book, remember
Yeah,
quitting her job to do that. Who else was with us?
that's right. Christy Wright.
Yep.
Christy Wright went on to be just a phenomenal speaker and communicator and author as well.
Sammy Cohn was
Gosh,
with us. Sammy
yeah, Sammy
Cohn.
Cohn was with
Yep.
us.
Mhm.
We had just a phenomenal group of women, and I know I'm forgetting a ton of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just amazing women leaders who were eager to keep learning and growing together. And that was what was so magical about it.
And honestly, that was the first time outside of my Mary Kay world I had ever seen alphas, females get along. Because when I
Yes.
was in the military, that did not work. So that is so fun. So let me get us pinned here in case people are going to jump on. Hold on one.
Great.
Hey, Mary Beth, there we go. Okay, great. So we're on. And then I'm going to check on Facebook, make sure that it does work the way we think it's going to. So, that was so cool. And that was when Brene, how do you say her name?
Brene Brown.
Yeah, she had just written her first book and we did her book. And
Yep.
so we started there. And then, so we've stayed in contact. And then you moved out to California and really just hit your stride of teams. And,
Mm,
I do think about really how we operate now. There's so much of what you taught us, 15, 16 years ago that we operate now and how I used in my Mary Kay world in creating all of this. And then this is how we got really reconnected was one of my top directors, Teresa Huntley's like, Diana, this is so funny. Diana, oh my gosh, on John Maxwell Leaders, my gosh, there is this girl on there and she is talking about culture matters and she's like speaking our language and we need to do her book and it is so good. I mean, like she just like blew my ear off and I'm like, well, tell me a little bit about her. And she said, well, her name's Jenny. And I'm like, really? And like it was so I was driving down the road, I'm like, didn't have to be Jenni Catron, did it? And she said, yes. Oh my gosh, she's written this book. I said, well, you're never gonna believe it. She's like my friend.
I know her.
And so Jenny was, then we found out the release date, and then of course me kicking off Sparkle again. It was just so good. So we were
So
so
fun.
excited about just being together today. And of course, this is the book again. So I am promoting it. We want to get to the New York Times bestsellers there for sure. You know what, Mary Beth, I may have you jump off so that because they're only showing one, and I want to be able to have this. Hold on, maybe if I do this, hold on, maybe if we do this so we can get both of us on. I want us to be able to see this. We'll see if it works this way. Okay, great. We're back to that. Okay, we're awesome. Okay, good. So Jenny, let me introduce her. I told you a little bit about her, but she is a leadership expert. That's why I thought she'd be great for us in Sparkle. She's an author. She's a speaker dedicated to empowering leaders to cultivate healthy cultures. There's a lot of culture out there, none of which, a lot of it we do not want to repeat, and
Right.
lead thriving organizations. And y'all, and truly, I am a student of that. She speaks at conferences, events nationwide. I'm sending this to our corporate staff, by the way, because they're great, but we can all learn. As a founder and CEO of Foresight Group, she consults organizations on leadership, team culture, organizational health with over 20 years of experience in corporate and nonprofit organizations. Jenni has a passion for helping leaders put their feet in vision. She is the author of 4 books, by the way, The 4 Dimensions of Extraordinary Leadership and Culture Matters, Helping Your Team Grow, Thrive, and Be Unstoppable. She loves a fabulous cup of tea, great books, learning the game of tennis, hiking with her husband, and of course, we have all of her information. So, Jenni, just before we get into this, oh my gosh, what does it feel like to be living in your dream life right now? Like
Oh my
this,
gosh.
we talked about this a gazillion years ago.
We did. And it is so special because, I dreamed as a little girl of being an author. And then, one of those things where you put a dream on the shelf, because the life kind of throws you a few things and you think, oh, that's not for me. And when I had the first opportunity to write a book, and Diana, this was back, when you and I were in the same city and community and doing life together. And just the privilege of writing books and investing in leaders just is an absolute joy. And then it's been 8 years between this book and the last one. And so it was kind of relearning those muscles. And it's been such a fun day because we did get the news this morning that we hit the USA Today list. And the privilege of investing in leaders just never gets old. So it's a super fun day. And Diana, my goodness, how fun. I mean, you and I get to text here and there, but to actually see each other's faces and connect again is such a treat. So thank you for this.
It is, it is. And I have to show y'all, for y'all that know me with books, I immerse in a book. I got these highlighted.
It's the
I
best.
walked in all of this. And so my daughter, Samantha, is so funny. She's like, don't touch that book. Like, don't do that. And then Dakota, her daughter, my granddaughter, were like, oh no, that's not even a good book if it's not I'll go in here. So
Different personalities, right?
right, that is so true. So Jenni, tell us kind of where the book grew from.
Mm,
Obviously, you've led a lot, and so that means you've seen a lot of good culture and a
yeah.
lot of not so good culture. Most people can recognize it, but they cannot figure out how to help people move into strong culture.
Yeah, yeah. And Diana, you nailed it right there. I think I've always had a passion around this, but it was kind of a thread that kept running through my journey so far. And I reflect back on my first job out of college was an absolute dream job. I worked in the music business in Nashville, corporate job, high pressure, high responsibility, but phenomenal team. Like just an amazing group of people that I got to work with every day. We worked hard, we hit our goals, we had the successes, we had the failures, the whole thing. And I did that for 8 years. And then we merged with another division of the company. And overnight, my experience went from really fantastic to really frustrating. And no disrespect to the people, but the environments were different. My job description was the same, my responsibilities were the same, but I was in a different environment with different people, and I was no longer thriving. And I remember that was shortly thereafter I went to Crosspoint, where you and I met. And I remember when I took that role at Crosspoint, I thought, I want every person who either works or volunteers in the organizations that I lead to have a phenomenal experience. I know what it looks like when it's great, and I know what it looks like when it's not so great. And I didn't get it perfect, but that's been just the conviction for me, is that everybody should be able to bring their gifts to the work that they're doing, whether it's paid work or volunteer work, or whether it's, just how you're contributing to your family, like all the different cultures that we're a part of. Like, we should be able to bring our best gifts and be in environments that draw out the best of us. And we're working hard, we're giving our best, but be able to thrive in that. And that's just been the passion point. And so really, this book has been the culmination of about 20 years of just trial and error and figuring it out, and just staying committed to saying, when teams are thriving, our ability to achieve the mission is exponentially greater, right? Like when we're a part of a team where we're giving our best, we understand what's expected of us, we're aligned with the vision, and then we're actually accomplishing that. it's so, I mean, it's so fulfilling. It's so rewarding. And so that's the heart behind it.
Yes. And it was so fun. Like as I was reading this, I feel like we kind of learned some of these lessons together
For
because
sure.
really, what the position that Jenny had back in the day was she was the multi-site leader. And that was before multi-site was big. And Dixon happened to be the first multi-site. And so she had learned all of that. And then plus navigate being a girl. That was
For
we talked
sure.
about that that we could do some things, but we are a girl. And so one of the things that I would love to just kind of park here for a minute, and I'm going to bring this up really quick, was there is really a lot in here, especially for y'all that have the opportunity to lead. What Jenny and I are going to talk about, because a lot of us on here are entrepreneurs. We're also a lot of nonprofits, a lot of solopreneurs. But when I was reading about this values grid, the example she gives in her book is she was working with a team and everybody thought they were working with their values and they thought what they were doing was building, but they really weren't. So can you drill down on this? Because I think
Yeah.
if we all took the time to do this with us in our inner circle, we could change the world.
Yeah, absolutely. This became kind of the anchoring point, and we've all seen values work before. But what I found was a lot of times, whether it's a work team or a sports team or your family unit, there are values that guide how you work together, like how you show up together, whether they're stated or not. And what I found, particularly in the Crosspoint era, and you kind of named this because you guys and Dixon were kind of the guinea pigs of like trying to figure out how to do multi-site. So my sincere apologies for all the bumps and bruises as we were learning. Um, but I was recognizing that we intrinsically had some values, things that were guiding us, but then everybody was interpreting those differently. And so I realized we had to be that much more intentional about what do we really value and what do we mean by that. And so I built this thing called the values grid, where we just said, hey, what's the actual value? And there's an example on that grid, and we have this resource that we can share with everybody as well. But there's an example of we said, you know what, in that era, we needed collaborative communication. Like we were spread across multiple campuses. We had a team that was growing rapidly. We had a ton of volunteers that were contributing, and we needed to be more intentional with our communication with one another. Well, collaborative communication, like that phrase doesn't get anybody very excited, right? Like we're all like, yeah, great. That sounds really corporate and fantastic. And so I started going that it's what we need, but how do we talk about it, right? Like how do we talk about it for everybody to feel that that really is really critical to how we operate as a team? So, I said, well, why? What's the belief? Why does this matter? And at the heart of it for us was that I felt like communication is an act of respect to your coworkers, right? Like that when you're intentionally looping people in, communicating what they need to know, it's respect. It's saying, hey, I respect you enough to make sure you have the information you need so that we can succeed together. And so as I shared that with the team, all the heads started nodding, right? Because you know what it feels like when you get left out of something and you're like, I felt really disrespected. I felt like I didn't matter. And so all of a sudden, I saw the light bulbs go on of everybody going, okay, yep, this matters. And then I said, now let me tell you a story. I said, y'all know how you like to go to lunch with me because I would say I'm an efficient driver. Some might interpret that as fast, but in any case, when we were going to lunch together, you want to go with me because we were going to get there first, right? Like we were going to get there first. We're going to get in line first. Like, so it's a running kind of joke within the staff culture. And I said, but if you ever notice, I religiously use my turn signal. Like I might be in a parking lot and I'm using my turn signal because if you move fast, if you don't communicate well, you're going to crash. And I said, guys, this is what I'm talking about with collaborative communication. We need to use our blinker. And that became the sticky statement or the phrase that defined our value because we said, you know what? We're moving fast. We're a fast growing organization. We have a lot of people involved. If we don't communicate well, if we don't use our turn signal, we're going to crash. And so that was the story that came to life that helped support it. And then we defined, well, what does that look like? What does that mean? What are the tools that we use? What are the questions that we ask? So we defined behaviors. And so what I found is I've worked now with, tens of hundreds of organizations around this work, is that when we go to that level of specificity, and I promise you, you can do it with your family. Like I've done it with my family, I've done it with volunteer teams, but to say, what are the even for yourself, what are the values that guide you and how you show up? What's the belief behind that? Why does that matter to you? Why is that disproportionately important to you? What does it look like? Like, just what are the behaviors? What am I doing to reflect that value? And then what are the stories or sticky statements that make it memorable? And that has seemed to, in the work that I've done with organizations since, it has just unlocked this clarity of my definition of culture is clarity of who we are and how we work together to achieve our mission. And that how we are, that we have a shared sense of, hey, this is how we show up together, brings unity, brings alignment, and brings clarity, which is such a key component for healthy teams.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I loved in this book, when you were talking about, especially the behavior part, is we do want people to bring their own gifts and talents and their own vision. But if you don't define it, the
Right.
story that you talked about in here is that people were doing these things that they thought let them use their blinker, but in reality, they were helping people get off the interstate in the wrong place. And
That's
so
right.
I thought that part of the collaboration was so important of what does that look like? And it's so funny because I still go to Dixon. It's still up there. The use your blinker, like we still have all those up there.
Yeah,
So
it's still part of the values.
still there. It is part of the values. So let's kind of talk about that. Let's say somebody is kind of working with, say, a volunteer team, or in the case of, like in kind of my world, we only work with volunteers because they can come as they want to. Like we don't have employees, those kinds of things. Some people might even have a small staff because we have a lot of nonprofits. So
Yep.
what would be, here's your first step in getting this chart done? Like kind of give them like a timeline of what that might look like.
Sure, sure. Yeah. I would say, and again, Diana, you nailed it in that it's absolutely applicable in how big or small your team is. That alignment of, hey, this is how we work together just helps people to know. I mean, it gives them confidence to show up. That's the thing that I think is so critical when we talk about organizational culture and we use values as the anchor, is that it helps everybody know, okay, here's how I succeed here. Right. So whether I'm a volunteer, whether I'm a paid staff member, that level of clarity, because if I'm here, I want to be a part of it. I want to contribute in a meaningful way. So the more clarity you give me on how to succeed, the more confident I am to show up. So that's the why behind it. So the next steps, I would sit down with your team and or yourself, like, and just brainstorm, okay, what's important to me? What do I value? Because you could probably come up with a list of things that you think you should value. We can all come up with integrity and honesty and humility and like all the character traits that we think are important. And those might be so obvious, they don't need to be stated, right? Like I'm not dismissing those. But then there are things that are really core convictions to you. Like for me, a core conviction for me is that I need to lead myself well. Because if I'm going to influence leaders like I get to do day in and day out, if I'm not making sure that I am thriving and healthy and leading myself well, I'm taking care of myself emotionally, spiritually, physically, so that I can show up, then I'm not going to have anything to give. So that's a deep core conviction for me. So self-leadership is one of my personal values, and it's one of my values for my company. So sitting down and just brainstorming and say, hey, what's really important to us? Like, what do we really care about? Like, because you'll intuitively know it. So big, just get it all on a whiteboard or, post-it sheet or whatever you want to use, but just get it out and then live with them a little bit, then talk about them as a team and say, well, what do you see? What does that look like? When are we doing it well? One of my favorite questions is to ask is, what do we look like at our best? So when you're working with your team, what do I look like? What do we look like at our best? And then if you might think of a recent project that you did and you're like, gosh, we killed it. We absolutely were at our best in that moment. Well, what was it? What were the values that were guiding you? And by asking a few of those questions, you'll start to get a list, and then you can work on refining that list.
So good. That is so good. I've got a couple of other questions that, you and I talked about, but that one thing I did want to tell you, it's on page 228, and you talk about emotional intelligence. So like I've got like a lot of that. The superpower of the best leaders is emotional intelligence. It's these soft skills, meaning the skills required to emotionally connect and interact effectively with others. And I feel like that, yes, that is so true. And those of us who are church talk would be called Titus women. In other words, the older women teaching the younger women how to be successful. And I think about the Gen Z that is coming up, the soft skills, they're not always they haven't seen them, they haven't experienced them, they don't really know
Sure.
where to go. So even again, for y'all that may or may not have a title, you've got Gen Z that you have the opportunity to transfer these soft skills so that they can grow their emotional intelligence. IQ will get people in the door, but if you're reading Forbes right now or anything, those Gen Z are going right out with all of that
That's
student loans.
right.
Are going right out the door because they don't have the soft skills. Can you speak into that? I mean, that just resonated with me, Jenni.
Yeah, it's so big. And, Diana, honestly, this was one of those that I learned by a lot of error. I was that ambitious, driven 20-something kid that came in guns a-blazing and, was a bit of a bulldozer because I lacked emotional intelligence. And granted, this is something that we're all working on all the time. So I've not arrived in this, but it's so powerful. And you all have felt it. Like we know what it looks like and feels like when we're with somebody who just has that intuition, that understanding of they understand themselves. They are reading and understanding the person across from them, and they even have that little sense of I have a sense of how you're feeling when you're with me, right? Like I'm intuitive enough to go, am I making you uncomfortable because I'm being a little too aggressive, or am I frustrating you because I'm not taking action quickly enough, right? Like that intuition, that awareness of, hey, how are you feeling when you're with me? Like, how am I behaving and how is that impacting you? When we learn that skill, and you're right, it's funny because in business terms they call it soft skills, and I'm like, it is anything but easy. Right? Right, like these are the challenging skills to develop. But it's fascinating, Diana. I'm doing some work with Barna, which is a research company. And one of the ladies was telling me she's done some research on family dynamics. And what they're noticing is that younger, like as Gen Z is coming into the workplace, because they've had their family dynamics have been very different than older generations, less of the nuclear family, they're and I think some of the dynamics of the last handful of years, they have less emotional intelligence skills, less conflict resolution skills, like some of those basic skills that we might assume people come into the workforce with, they are not coming into the workforce with because they haven't had the experiences that would help them develop those things. So what that's meaning for us as leaders is that we have to be conscious of that. And I know sometimes I'll get frustrated because I'm like, well, why do they not want to just go have that conversation with their peer? Well, it's because they've never been taught to go have that, harder conversation with somebody. So I think it's important for us, those of us who are now the tightest women, as you put it, that we are conscious of the responsibility to help develop those younger leaders, to have the patience for, hey, it's not that they're trying to be difficult or that they just don't care. It's that they need us to help mentor and help them develop some of those skills they want to develop. That's the thing I'm loving about the younger generation is they are eager for development and they have quite an expectation of they want us to develop them. And I think in my impatience, sometimes I want to say, well, go figure that out and then come when you're ready. And the reality is, we're in this position of leadership to help influence the people that are coming up alongside us. And that's the opportunity. I might have gone on a rabbit trail on you on that
No,
one, but
no, and that's so true because we all have them, and in our life. And I know, like in our world, the one of the things that we had to start doing was really Dale Carnegie, which was to speak what we wanted. In other words, I know that in the world today, there is a culture of quit. And, I always talk about the culture of commit, that when you come in, you're going to feel like quitting, but you're not, because you're better than that. And you've done harder
It's
things.
good.
This makes your story better. And I think that part of it is we got to be careful of the stories that we're telling about our people,
Yeah.
about the next generation, whatever that is, and that we speak to them as who we believe they could be.
So good.
Learned that from Mary Kay. And, and
Yep.
everybody has that sign around their neck that says, make me feel important. And I think if we're not really careful, you're going to find yourself right, but lonely.
Oh, that's so good.
And there's so much that we can learn.
Yeah, I don't remember where this kind of stood out to me, but somewhere along the way, just I recognized the gift of belief, right? Like, when you believe in somebody, and I had people who did that for me, right? That then you believe in somebody, you see something in them, and it might be a gift that still needs some development, but you see that potential. When you speak that into somebody, it is such an extraordinary gift. Like, it is absolutely such a gift. When I was starting out in leadership, I was trying to make sense of what in the world is leadership even, and what does this mean for me? And I thought it was about climbing the ladder and all my achievements. And you quickly learn, no, it's not about you at all. Like, leadership is really about others. And I remember reading a John Maxwell quote that said, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And then I looked at that word influence, and it means the power to change or affect someone. And Diana, that definition stopped me in my tracks. Like, I will forever have my philosophy for leadership completely changed, because when you think about it, the leaders in your lives are changing or affecting you. But is it positive or negative? Because we've all had those experiences, right? The leaders who changed and affected us in a good way, the leaders who changed and affected us in a not so good way. And I thought, gosh, this is absolutely sacred work. This privilege of leadership, this privilege of influence. And it doesn't mean we have to have a position. It means, you know what, that coworker, that friend, that family member who I am influencing day in and day out, how I steward that influence determines the trajectory, determines the impact. And it's such extraordinary work. So seeing that belief, seeing that potential in somebody is
Mm.
changing or affecting them when we call it out. And it's super powerful.
It is. And I love how you're, again, kind of coming back to the emotional intelligence, like I see really powerful people that they allow people in their inner circle that they would never trade places with, they would never take advice from. And then yet those people are influencing their belief in themselves. And this is so funny. Like, I just got off a video with the company, and Jamie Taylor, who is one of my favorite people, and her entire message was about breathing belief into people. That's what she does. She said, I don't give an idea when they're stuck. I just remind them how much fun we're going to have on the other side, and then they get to figure that out. And Jenny, that's exactly what you did for us.
Mm.
At whenever we got started, and you were such a collaborative. Like, I always remember you never had to be right. And again, whenever I think about
Mm.
that, us sitting in that office, and I think about when and we're not name dropping, I promise. I just wanted to tell y'all that everybody has a beginning,
Yeah.
and but you gotta begin with people that think like you and that want what you've got there. So let me I got a couple of questions here. Hold on one second. I'm trying to do this pinning, and okay, I think I'm on there. I can't tell, but whatever. Online we can kind of see there. But so here was a question that you and I had talked about that I thought would really make a difference here. The power of teams, how we contribute to the environments that we work and lead. My question to you would be, you've written 4 books. Why do you think culture is truly the game changer? Like,
Mm.
at the end of the day, you can have the best product, you can have the best marketing
That's
plan,
right.
you can be, everything can be right. But if you don't have the right culture, you're gone, baby, gone.
Yeah, yeah. And again, this is one of those things that kind of learning as I went. But what I found, what I've kind of come to believe is that for every team, organization, goal, you need 3 things. You need a clear sense of purpose. Why am I doing this? Right? Like, every one of us needs that. And in fact, I've kind of been going back to that recently, just because of all the opportunities of going, what's my why? What's that driving passion? What's that sense of calling and conviction? Like, a clear sense of purpose. So whether it's individual, whether it's organization, or team, like, what's our why? But then what we often do is we jump to strategy. Like, how do we do it? Like, what's the plan? What are the actions we need to take? How do we make it happen? But in the middle, if you can envision like three building blocks, kind of stacked on each other, in the middle are the people. So if you like alliteration, it's purpose, people, and a plan. But in the middle,
I love P. I love
you
P
love
words.
P
That's
words.
so good.
So in the middle are the people or the culture, right? It's the people that make that happen. So you can have an amazing purpose and mission. You can have a fantastic strategy to achieve it. But if the people are not cared for, if they're not aligned, if we're not equipping them, if we're not giving them the clarity they need to know how to help us connect that purpose to a strategy, like if we're not nurturing that, then the, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how great the mission is, doesn't matter how great the plan is, you're dead in the water. And you've all seen that and experienced that, right? Like we've been on teams where it's like, we just feel like we're in quicksand. Like we just aren't getting anything done. It's like we kind of know what we're supposed to be shooting for, but because the team isn't aligned, maybe there's tension, maybe there's infighting, maybe there's gossip, maybe there's mistrust, like whatever those reasons are, when that team is struggling, you're not achieving the mission. You're not achieving that plan. And so that's what I kept coming back to. Like in our Crosspoint days, Crosspoint was a rocket ride of growth, like absolute rocket ride of growth. And we were hanging on for dear life to try to keep it all in check. And, and again, not perfect, but there was such a commitment to the team. Like there was such a commitment to like, how do we keep investing and growing this team and investing in the people? And it wasn't perfect, but there was a heart and a commitment to it. And I think that, I think, again, you can see so many organizations where you can have a great vision and mission and, goals that you want to achieve. But if you're not nurturing the people, if you're not caring for the people, you won't succeed.
Yeah, what is the point? And
Yeah.
Jamie had even said, Craig Rochelle says growth creates complexity, but complexity kills growth. And so
Yes.
it's like that whole momentum of, oh my gosh, this growth is so great, but then you get so complicated that you lose the way of that. And especially as you were talking about, as the founder gets older, or, like originally, like, and I do think, whenever I come back to originally there at Crosspointer and different things, I was trained by Mary Kay Ash herself. I sat in her living room. So for me, I understand those values, but my job at Crosspoint, and I don't work for Crosspoint, but I volunteer there, but or in anything like that in Mary Kay, is to pass on those values. And it is challenging because what I find is each generation is like, well, that doesn't relate to my generation. And in reality, it does. It just might be disguised a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And it looks a little bit. The last question here as we wrap up, because I know you got a million interviews because you're just so in demand. Lucky us, we even got on our schedule.
I'm so glad.
Oh my gosh, I am so glad. I am so glad. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to give away one of these Culture Matters books. And how I'm going to do this is if you all, the person that shares with the most people, that comes back and types your name in the comments. Okay, so I'm going to look back through this. We're going to give it a couple of days, and whoever's got the most names, I'm going to buy this book for you. So there we go. So just share the Diana Sumter Sparkle with that. One of the things you talked about in here is the importance of identity as a popular concept today. It's page 93, by the way. Life coaching and life planning are common practice. And you talked about that God has uniquely designed each of us. One of her favorite scriptures is Galatians 4:5. This is like your whole book. Make a careful exploration of who you are and the work that you've been given. Then sink yourself into that. Don't be impressed with yourself. Don't compare yourself with others. Each of you must take responsibility for doing the creative best you can with your own life. Oh my gosh, in this culture of comparison, Jenni, talk to us about that. Let's wrap up on that. Let's give people freedom.
Yeah, gosh, Diana, this was an anchoring one for me years ago. On my book Clout is like I unpack that verse all completely because it became life verse for me. In that, again, we're successful, ambitious, driven women, and so that make a careful exploration of who you are and the work you've been given. So still making sure we're grounding ourselves in that identity of who we are, not what we do. Like, and we're all successful and we've all got the accolades and all the things we can, claim, but that's not who we are. Who we are is a child of God created in his image with gifts that he's given us experiences that have shaped us. So looking at what are all these things that have shaped who I am and are unique to me, that unique imprint that God has given me, make that careful exploration. And then it says, sink yourself into that. And I love that part of the phrase, the verse, because it's like that means to be wholehearted, to be fully immersed. And like you said, we get so busy comparing and going, oh, should I be doing that because they're doing that? Oh, should I be doing it that way because that seems to be working? And we just get kind of scattered and we lose our focus in saying, no, this is who I am. This is what I've been gifted to do. This is where God has placed me. This is the experience he's given me. This is the opportunity that he's put in front of me. And I need to sink myself into that. So whether it's your family and the stage of life your kids are in, whether it's the volunteer team you're helping support, whether it's the coworkers you're working with, I mean, whatever circle of influence you have, sinking yourself into it and being present in that. Because again, I think we get so fixated on all the other things that we miss it. And you're right in the middle of that verse is but don't be impressed with yourself. Don't compare yourself with others. It's like the warning sign saying, hey, stay focused, stay committed. Don't get distracted by this other stuff. Take responsibility for doing the creative best you can with your own life. And again, I think we feel so much compulsion to mimic and compare and be what other people tell us to be. And I find continually in scripture, God is going, I made you unique. Like you are distinct. There's a unique set of gifts and experiences and opportunities that you have that have shaped who you are. And so take responsibility for doing the creative best you can with that. Like the imprint that you're going to have, the influence that you're going to have is unique to you. And so I think as we seek that, the joy and clarity and confidence that comes with this is so rewarding.
So true. I do think back to, again, in our community groups that we did, there really was no comparison. I mean, like, we were
It was
just
so fun.
right? It was this incubator for dreams. Like truly,
Mhm.
we were each other's best cheerleaders. Like, oh, you could do that. And, there were a lot of tears there too, because
A lot of tears, a lot of prayers, because we were praying for big stuff for each other. Everybody was going through different things and on the brink of, whatever was next in their season, and it was super powerful.
that's so true. That is so true. Well, and so then just to wrap up today, Jenny, I know that I am praying for an anointing on your
Thank you.
words and your life's work. Thank you for giving us the permission to look at cultures we respect, but to also take on our own responsibility to design our own culture because it's going to be how we are. And the more we
Yeah.
copycat other people, the less our people are going to be involved. And nobody needs to be able to do that. And so it's a lot of times those of us who are leaders, we don't always get to see this side of heaven or, in such a short amount of time, just 10 or 12 years, to be able to see somebody really hit it big. For all of my Sparkle sisters, please share this, share her book, join me in prayer. Y'all, we need more women leaders, more women teachers, more women influencers like Jenni Catron. The world is a better place, my sweet friend,
Mm,
because of who you are, who you've chosen to be, and who you've chosen to serve. And
thank you so
I just
much.
think the Lord looks down and go, oh, my daughter, I'm so proud of you. So thank you
Diana,
all
thank you.
so much. Thank you so much.